Hello everyone and welcome to another video in this series. My name is Abraham Leal and today we're going to continue with the sculpting and well, let's see how far we can get this. So first of all, thank you very much for yesterday's messages. I saw that you people did like this series, so let's continue. Let's see how far we can get it. I do intend to bring this all the way to Unreal, to like a game ready character. So we're going to be going for that. Let me move this to a different section. There we go. So here I'm going to select my clay buildup, and the next stage of this process is, of course, to go into the details. You can see there's a lot of branching and details up here on the character. So whenever we're working with this, we need to always focus on the shapes and the forms, right? Like that's one of the most important things. So you can see these elements are like trees that are growing from the bottom part of the character, and they kind of branch out all the way to the top. So I'm going to be very soft here when adding this sort of things. I'm going to make sure that they kind of like blend and mix together to create this overarching like structure. Here we can of course use a negative, so we can press Alt on our brush to soften up some of these elements. Let's go over here. You can see here on the face there's like one sort of like a root that goes in there. Let's turn on the eyes. I think that's a good thing to do. And also let's rework the eyes there a little bit. There we go. Now, as you can see, I'm not really working with that much geometry yet. And this is very important. The very common mistake that people make when they're working on Zbrush is they jump too quickly to the higher subdivision levels. And they try to do like the micro details and everything when there's a lot of things that you need to work with the main forms first. So that's what we're doing here. We're working on the main forms first, and then we're going to transition onto the details and the fibers and all the little like creepy things and stuff. Definitely want to make this thing look natural, so we're going to be adding sort of like branches and stuff, like some of them going up, some of them going down, and then with smooth, we can slowly and softly smooth these things out. You don't want to erase all of the things that we've done, right? But we do want to create a very like organic looking membrane all around this character right here. And this is one of those parts of the process where it definitely takes time. And I always try to make this as interesting as possible, because I know that just like watching paint dry is not as it's not as fun, but it's part of the process. This is a very, very like common part of our process when creating characters and assets and anything. Like 3D is a really cool career, I would say. I love it, of course, but I know it can be time consuming. Have you guys seen those videos where people make like cakes, like the decorations for cakes, and they go like bit by bit decorating every single thing? Like that's the kind of patience that you need to have for these elements as well. So we're gonna go here. As you can see, we have this sort of like pillars where the teeth would be. We don't see the upper teeth. He has like an underbite, but I would expect there to be some upper teeth. So I'm actually gonna like create a little like indentations where I would expect them to be. And then for the eye, we can play around with this sort of like eye shape. It's kind of angry. So I'm gonna use my move brush to make the eye a little bit more like an angry sort of eye. There we go. And then we're just gonna keep going over here. I still haven't found like my perfect setup for my desk. There we go. Now here, where it becomes the border, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a technique that I like to call the Crisscross technique. I use this a lot for like wrinkles and folds and stuff like that. Very common mistake is people will do just like a straight line, and that could work for certain things. But I like to do this sort of like crisscross technique to create something that's a little bit more natural looking. Because wrinkles, they're not just like one fold and that's it. They tend to kind of like go over each like different part and create a slightly different effect. So by doing this crisscross technique with my Damien standard, as you can see, we can get something that looks a little bit more natural. This is where the fibers would be going like underneath the big like carapace thing. I'm gonna press Control Shift and hide the tail for a little while. We'll focus on these things right here. And then I'm gonna use my clay buildup because wrinkles, they do create crevices, but they also create volume. You will see like a couple of the parts of the skin will get like inflated a little bit. And that's what you would see, like this sort of stuff, right? And we're gonna inflate some of those wrinkles. It's also gonna give us a very natural, realistic look. And then you can see we have this like thingies. I'm not sure how to call them. Again, it's kind of like wrinkles that we have there. I'm gonna add a couple of them. Back here, I can see them are a little bit more prominent, like getting closer to this big thing right here. It's like kind of like a cut. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 3 really close together. This one's right here. Then there's one like right there. There's like damage right here. I'm gonna go with clay buildup again. I'm gonna carve in on those areas a little bit to indicate the sort of like damage that we have on that part of the carapace. Carapace. And then over here, I'm also gonna add a little bit of volume. Again, it's kind of like if you guys ever gotten like a cut, like when we were kids and you went to the park or to play outside and you scraped your knee. When you would get your scar, sometimes the scars would create like a keloid. I think it's called keloid, like protuberance. And I have a couple on my knees. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going for here. A little bit smooth there. There we go. Now here you can see we have like this thing right here. It's a little bit difficult to see, but that would be like the zygomatic arc. And this is where anatomy really comes into play, because if you know your anatomy, you're going to be able to incorporate elements that you would see in anatomy, in human anatomy, on characters. And that's going to give them another layer of like validity, verisimilitude, something like that. It's going to make it look way more real. So if I add that like zygomatic arc right there, which would be like the cheekbone, this is going to look way better. If you want to learn a little bit more about anatomy, we just released a course about male and female anatomy inside of Blender, and I also have a couple of courses, and you can find all of those for free if you use our Skillshare promotion. Hey guys, Abraham here. I just wanted to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below. There we go. So yeah, this is just like following along with the main forms here, creating the pillars, creating the fibers that are indicative of the sort of like membrane-ish look that our character has. You can also use Damien standard for this like membranes. Like if you want to push some of this like deeper, that's perfectly fine. Just again, try to use the sort of like crisscross technique or something so it doesn't look that bad. Now here on the inside of the mouth, we can use the inside of the mouth, like the human mouth, as a sort of reference, and it's very like membrane-ish. So the roof of the mouth has this. You can kind of feel it if you try it with your tongue. Has this sort of like pillar on the upper part, like here, like the hard palate, and then there's like membranes right there. This is only necessary if the character is going to be opening the mouth to do like a roar or something. But as you can see, just doing a little bit of indication should be more than enough. Same like back here, like maybe he has like a little, I always forget the name of the little thing that hangs on the back of the mouth. Because we might need to add a tongue later on. Again, it depends on the type of creature. Not all creatures have tongues, so there we go. Now, the shoulder. Here's where the interesting part starts happening, because here on the shoulder, I do want to create a little bit of the division. So I'm going to use my Minion standard again to kind of like divide where the plate that protects the articulation of the shoulder is going to be. So it would be like right around here. And this is information that we don't have from the character. And that's very, very common, especially on a big production. Sometimes there won't be enough time for concept artists to work every single like a detail. And there's going to be a lot of like back and forth that you're going to have to do with your art director or with your client to make sure that you are like doing what they want you to do. Now here, we're going to carve in to indicate where this arm is going to be like rotating from. Now, a couple of different options here for production. In this case, I'm gonna keep it simple. I want this to be, I want people to be able to follow this. But normally in a production, it might not be like a weird thing to actually like split this thing from the like keep the arms separated. But since we're gonna be doing skinning, and since it's a minion, like usually you don't spend as much resources on things that are gonna be really easy to kill or really fast to kill, right? Like think about like a Goomba inside of Mario Brothers. It's a very simple one. You're not gonna spend as much time on the Goomba as you're gonna do on Bowser, right? Because Bowser, of course, is gonna be way more important. Let's go now to this plate. This will be like the chest plate. So again, Damien is standard here to divide and do this. And here's a trick that I'm doing. Again, we don't have a lot of information here, but I'm gonna add volume with my clay buildup like this. And then I'm gonna use my trim dynamic to flatten some of that volume. And as you can see, that's gonna give me a very like hard surfacey look to the whole thing. It could be like a bone, like a jawbone or something. And especially for this sort of like stylized characters, it's I think it's a quite a good idea to go for this. There we go. Now it's not a bad idea to go back to the jaw and do a little bit of work here. So let's turn off the color as well. You can see here that there's a very cool looking like thingy. So I'm going to use BSH, which is my BSH is a shortcut for the Sculptress Pro. And I am going to turn on this thing, which is called, sorry, that's the snake hook. This is the Sculptress Pro thing, which as we add more stuff, it generates more geometry, as you can see right there. So we're gonna add, I can see 1, 2, 3 little claws, like, or little like fangs back here. This one's like not in the direction that I would like. Trim dynamic here too. There we go. That's a little bit closer to what we want. Move brush. Let's exaggerate this thing a little bit more. Let's give it a thicker base. And you can see this like silhouette on the underneath it. It's really important. So I'm gonna carve in this thing right there, so that it looks like the fang, or this, yeah, it's like a fang. It's actually like protruding out, right? Now we definitely need to, I'm gonna turn off Sculptress Pro and I'm gonna increase the resolution in Dynamesh to get way more resolution. And now I'm gonna use Trim Dynamic to start sharpening up, like giving it this sort of like hard surfacey, sharp look to the whole thing. I don't want to go super sharp. I've talked about this before. When you have things that are really thin, like a razor sharp, that makes it really difficult to retopologize. And also to display, you start getting with aliasing issues. That's why, for instance, in World of Warcraft, most of the weapons have like a very wide edge. Because if you go for a razor sharp, it becomes complicated. So now let's start adding like the base of the tooth here. There we go. It's just details, right? Like now we're going into the detailing phase. I like to call this the secondary and tertiary forms, because we're not going for we're not trying to create the again, like the wrinkles and the crevices and stuff like that. We're just doing things that are making our character look way more intense. I'm gonna grab my snake hook again to create a little like the front teeth here. There we go. Dynamesh. And then here we built a little bit of the details. Like this. Now all of this area, it's just like bone. It's just like the jaw, right? So Let's make it look like so. And we want to make the jaws look really, really strong. I'm gonna do another like cut right here. Here. Let's isolate. I'm gonna use dynamic solo to isolate the inside because I have a lot of work to do here. To the base of the teeth. Carve in. There we go. And then this is going to be like the hard palette as well. So I'm just going to do this sort of like texturing thing. Smooth things out a little bit. There we go. Now, if we, as you can see, we can position this here, and this will be like the animation that we would have from this specific part of the body. So here, the most important thing is I want to make sure that this thing is falling where it's supposed to be. Even if there's a little bit of overlap, that's fine. Something like that, I think. Cool. Now, I'm not sure about all of this areas right here, so I'm going to use my move brush and probably just... I think it's fine, actually. I might give it like a 4 teeth, like right here, just a small one, so that it doesn't look like out of place. I really like this like big spike that he has, so I'm gonna use my move brush again to just like move the mask right there so that the silhouette's a little bit cleaner. There we go. Now on this upper one, on the upper jaw, I remember we mentioned that we would need to have some teeth. So let's increase the resolution a little bit. There we go. I'm gonna mask the inside, and then with W, I'm just gonna reset the pivot point so we can just like pull them down. Just a small teeth like that. Smooth them out. There we go. See? Simple. Just a small little teeth right there, and that's more than enough to indicate those those teeth. It looks very funny. Nice. I like that. I think these ones, as you can see, are a little bit closer to the face. So I'm just gonna push this thing back. Just orient it a little bit closer. There we go. And I'm probably just gonna move this guys up. So those other teeth that we just did, they're gonna be kind of like hidden, or I want them to be kind of like hidden. There we go. Go back to this one. Then we can push the curvature of this like front part a little bit more. That's it. Let's go back to this area right here. Well, actually, we're working on the arm, right? So for the arm, it's interesting because we need to think about rigging. And in rigging perspective, or in rigging principles, like we'll have the ball and joint from the shoulder, and then we will have like the arm, and then we'll have a socket right here, and then another ball and joint. It's going to be the forearm, and then again a socket, and then another ball and joint. So it's ball, socket, ball, socket, which means that in our case, we already have the ball, which is right here. So this will be socket, which means that we need to cut this. I'm going to cut this. There we go. And that's going to create the socket where this thing is going to be, we would expect this thing to be rotating from. Again, we don't need to separate it. You could separate this into multiple subtools. That could even like facilitate the rigging process. But again, to be honest, this is just a character. So no, not that much. We don't have to worry that much about that. Now this one, it's interesting because this final part, we would invert it. This would be a ball, and the socket would be the purple thing. So we need to indicate this as so. There we go. Yeah, so if you're doing a character and you don't want to mess with skinning, rigging is, I don't think rigging is that difficult, to be honest. Skinning tends to be the thing that people struggle with to make things deform in the way that they want. But if you do things that are segmented, like imagine like a puppet. Have you seen Pinocchio, by the way? Very good movie. The Del Toro, no, not the not the Disney one. So if you've seen puppets, they don't need skinning because all of the parts are solid, and therefore they move like solid pieces. In this case, they're not going to be solid pieces. They're going to be like organic, so there's going to be a little bit stretch and squash and stuff like that. But again, for a minion, especially like a little creature that you're going to see on the ground, it's perfectly fine. So here what I'm doing, even though we don't have that much information, it is a good idea to try and give this thing some sort of like a visual interest. So I'm trying to do like a fat or skin or cartilage or something, just something, right? Because we don't want this thing to just be like a smooth ball, especially since everything else on the character has some sort of like texture and stuff. I'm just creating this like membrane-ish looking things. Can go with Damien Standard as well. And again, this is one of the fun things about small projects like this. Since it's just a small character, you don't have to be. You can be a little bit loose on the things because it's not gonna be as important as other parts. You should always try to do things in the best possible way, though, especially if you're working on your portfolio. Portfolio pieces should always be like as nicely constructed as possible. But it is understandable when that's not possible. Here, for instance, I'm gonna create a division on the arm. It's kind of like dividing the bicep and the tricep, just so we have something of interest, again, visual interest on that section. This is the chest, and for the chest, actually, even on this blade right here, since it has the spike, I'm gonna use that spike as a sort of like design choice that the original artist had to incorporate that into the design of other pieces. So what we can do is we can add the pieces here to create a sort of like protruding thing. See that? And like an armor, like this. There we go. And that way we're gonna have like a sharp thing like coming out. And it's gonna give us an interesting effect. And again, this is where we can take some artistic liberties because we don't have the information. This was just a doodle that the artist originally did. So he maybe didn't have enough time to think about all of this, these things right here. But we can, so that's why we're doing it. Now here's where I would expect the stomach to be, and again, following a little bit of anatomy, I would expect them to be some sort of like muscles, right? So we can add like some, so similar to like pectoral muscles. Just following along and blending into the end. It's very common for creatures to have like a symmetry line. So I think it might not be a bad idea to do it like here. Like you can take a look like in our backs, on the lower backs, we have this sort of like muscle, right? So it's not a bad idea to add that. He would probably have an sphincter there or his reproductive organs. We're not going to add them, of course, but just keep that in mind. There we go. Now on this side right here, we're of course need to finish all of the like the texturing on the mushroom side of things. I'm just gonna throw in some random lines right now, and I'll come back and we'll fix that. But I just want to have like the general texture because here we again have the legs, and you can see the legs. I originally just did this like weird thingies, so I'm gonna use my move brush and we're gonna start polishing them up a little bit better. So here's where like using maskings and selections is a good idea so that we can focus only on this thing. I'm gonna use dynamic solo as well. You can see the first one, it goes towards like a point, a single point. So let's just smooth this out, even like trim dynamic. I love trim dynamic because it's kind of like a way to erase things while keeping form. It's a little bit weird to explain why this is useful, but it's just good. So that will be the first one. And now with move brush, you can do this. And you can see it kind of has like, again, like a claw. So you would expect to see like something here, kind of like fading down into the claw. So again, thinking from a rigging perspective, from a production perspective, how is this thing gonna move? Well, it's probably gonna be like a leg, right? Like if I think again on the joint side of things, I'm gonna take a look at the front view. This is the little claw. So I would expect there to be a joint here that goes down. And then it depends how many like divisions we want here, but I would probably want like one joint right here and then a second one right here, so that if we lower this thing, you can lower the whole body and the claws remain the same. So it's kind of like again, if we simplify the rigging process, is going to be something like this. This would be like on the torso. This will be inside the torso. This will be the leg, right? This like puffy thing right here, and then the claw is the final one, which means that we can again, or should again, do a similar process to what we did on the hand, where we kind of like segment this thing like this and separate the elements. Now this is a little bit more organic than the claws, so I am gonna do a little bit of a division here on this like initial claw, and then you can see there's way more like puffiness, so more folds and stuff. And we definitely need to add those. It's kind of creepy looking. We can add this folds very nicely there. Second one right there. Kind of like a Michelin, the Michelin dude, like from the tires. When my baby girl was born, she was really puffy. And she had all this like folds on her arms and stuff. Really cute. Trim dynamic. And we're gonna trim dynamic the claw, so that we can polish this thing a little bit. Now here I'm going to show you a trick to save a little bit of time. Because as you can tell, or as you can probably see, the other legs are really similar. So what I'm going to do is as follows. I'm going to duplicate the whole thing. Go to this one. I'm going to dynamic solo. And then I'm going to use Control Alt and select, like hide the little legs right there. Invert the selection. And then delete all of these things right there. I'm going to say delete hidden and Dynamesh. And then with trim dynamic, I'm going to like clean up the border here a little bit. You can try smoothing out, but trim dynamic is usually a faster way to just like flatten things. You can see it's pretty much I extracted the leg, right? Like I extracted the leg from the character, Dynamesh again. To clean that stuff, and there we go. Now we go back to the other one, this one right here. It's isolated. I'm gonna do something similar. I'm gonna erase. With this case, it's gonna be the opposite. So I'm gonna select this guys right here. Try to cut as close as possible. Invert the selection. I'm gonna say delete hidden, which you can find on the geometry menu under it's here under geometry, and then modify topology, delete hidden. And now that we've deleted that, as you can see, we can go to this guys, center the pivot point, move it back. This one's a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. And then Control Alt and just duplicate again. This one's smaller, just make it smaller. Get them closer. We want all of them to be touching the ground. And then with Move Brush, we can just do like a little bit of surgery. We just accommodate or try to move things closer to where it's supposed to be. Oh, we press, we need to do auto groups for polygroups. And then we're gonna merge this down. But before we do that, we're gonna go to this guy right here. And I'm also gonna do a little bit of surgery to try to reduce the hole as much as possible. Because once we merge them, when we try to close a hole, we might see some weird stuff. There we go. So we go back to this, guys, and we just say merge, merge down, and hit OK. Dynamesh, and when we Dynamesh, as you can see, it gets close. Of course, there's going to be like errors, but this just saves us like 10 minutes of work, right? Because it's just a matter of rebuilding this part of the character. And that's a very important way to work when you're doing any sort of production, because time is really important. I've mentioned this before. A lot of people are paid by the hour, but even if you're not, like, well, the more efficient you are, the more work you can do, and the more you can earn, right? So that's why being fast and efficient is so important on this industry. So knowing small little tricks and techniques like that is always a good way to to accelerate the creative process and get to the result a little bit faster. There we go. Look at that. By the way, we don't have any more poly paint. We lost it because we were doing the like all of the elements here. But I think it works quite nice. I think it's looking quite nice. On the back part, we have this like tendril thingies. I don't know. It's like a weird little like red tail. For that, again, there's a lot of ways to do it. But I think the easiest one would be first to know where they're coming from. So I can see that there's like some sort of like protrusion right here. And there's just like another one, that one. And then at the very end, that's where the tail is going to be coming from. Again, you don't want to make things super thin because it makes it difficult to rig, to texture, to retopologize. Like it's just not worth it. So if you can make things a slightly bulkier, slightly thicker, that's always a good idea. I'm gonna say append, and I'm gonna append a cylinder. Gonna make the cylinder really thin. Rotate this back. That will be the first one. You can see right there. And then we just Control Alt to duplicate this. Push it back, rotate a little bit more. Something like that. And we can go back to the character. You can see it fades like very nicely into the cylinder. So I'm gonna start like tapering down this thing, maybe even like moving this thing forward like this. There we go. It looks like it's coming from there, right? A little bit of train dynamic to help with this. And there we go. For this one, fairly simple, I would say. We're again going to give it a little bit more subdivisions. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of a train dynamic on the upper part. I'm going to turn off the color as well. This is going to help me keep like a sharper edge on the shield. This like shield arms that it has. And then again, we don't see it very clearly, but it creates like a concave thing where this thing goes into. It might not be a bad idea to just indicate how this thing like goes in there. Maybe even just like a line right there. There we go. Trim dynamic again. Now for those points, the little points that are just floating around, we got 1, 2, 3, like a couple of them. Fairly easy to do, just clay buildup. And it's just a matter of like drawing them where we want. Trying to match the exact same ones. But most of the time, like I remember when I was in school, there were like two big ideologies crashing. Like some teachers were like, you always have to match the concept perfectly. You need to match the concept perfectly. You should not deviate or do anything that's not part of the concept. And then there were other teachers that were like, you need to take the concept and make it your own. You need to give it your own twist because that's what's gonna like separate you from the rest of the people out there. Like a lot of the artists are gonna be really they're gonna be like super capable of creating a concept and following it to the T. But if you can offer something new and something original, that's what's gonna give you an advantage over everyone else. So who do you believe? Who do you follow? It all depends, right? It's one of those things in life where you're gonna have to find what works best for you. In my case, like following the concept as close as possible and then giving it my own twist or taking some artistic liberties in certain areas has worked quite nicely, I would say. But again, it could change. Like I've had some projects where the clients were very inflexible on doing like new things or different things. They're like, no, this is the concept that we want. We want it to be exactly like that. And there's been other projects where it's like, nah, you can like take some liberties. That's fine as long as it looks as close as possible. That's fine. But yeah, Yeah. I really like how this guy is coming along. Just gonna give it a couple more minutes here. I just want to remind you guys again, if you can help us with a like, if you've been here for the past 35 minutes. Normally I try to keep the video shorter, but there was some good feedback yesterday about the pace, like trying to keep it a little bit slower, making sure you can follow. Unfortunately, the algorithm here on YouTube, oh man, it's a pain to work with the algorithm, because I know there's a lot of students that are right here with me at this point of the video, and I really appreciate it for you guys. Like, thank you for the support. But most people just click on the video and then they just like stop watching it. So it's part of the deal. So, but you guys, if you've been watching all the way to this point, this is what you have to do, especially if you're a student. This is the best, like one of the best decisions you can do. Just invest in your education, learn as much as you can from people like me who are sharing. I'm not the only one, I know, but learn as much as you can and then do it. You need to go out there and do it. Like if you've already spent 35 minutes watching me do this, take the next 30 minutes, take the next hour, and now try to do it yourself. Try to follow along and try to create your own character as well. So yeah, one more thing I want to do here, because as you can see, the carapace here is very like soft. I just want to add like some random like masses and volumes with my clay buildup, and then I'm going to smooth it out. And by smoothing it out, what I'm doing is I'm creating some like irregularities throughout the whole thing. And this is kind of like my style. Like I'm taking this guy a little bit more towards my style. But I think it really looks and feels nice, because instead of having some just like super clean flat surfaces, you have a little bit of interest everywhere. I've always thought that looks cool on characters, like this grungy sort of effect. Same thing for this guy right here. Like, just add some interesting irregular masses on the claws. They're not supposed to be perfect. Nature is rarely like super perfect, so you will find this sort of like details and stuff. And that's it. I'm gonna stop the video right here, guys. I think we're done with our primary like construction here for the character. I think we're in a really good position. I'm probably gonna be doing a render on another software just to showcase where we're at right now. And I think the next thing we can do is we can definitely jump into Retopology. So it's gonna be sad, because anytime I do a Retopology video, the views and the likes, they go like down. Like no one likes Retopology. It's one of those things that people are real like not super excited about. And I know it tends to be quite boring. But I'm gonna try to make it as fun and as interesting as possible, so that you guys can follow along as well. Because some of you might be like, well, can we add like wrinkles and stuff? And yeah, we could of course go here like I'm doing and just like sculpt a little bit more of the areas, add a little bit of more details. But wrinkles and stuff, we can actually do that in texturing. Nowadays, especially for production, for game production, you don't have to do all the high frequency detail inside of Zbrush. You can do it directly on the textures. And one of the advantages of doing that is the fact that you're going to be able to see in real time how good the texture will be able to catch it. Because I've had students who go and create like creatures like this, and they're like, oh, I did like a 50 million polygon creature, but the creature's like 30 centimeters big, so it's never gonna be, it's gonna have like a 512 by 512 texture on the game. So all of the detail that you sculpted, all of the work that you did, it's not gonna be useful. You're not gonna be using it or needing it, because you're not gonna see it. Okay, so by doing the high definition or the high frequency details on the texture stage, you can save yourself quite a bit of time, because that's the kind of detail that you're gonna see. And then if you're in the texturing, you're like, hey, you know what, like maybe we could have used a couple of more wrinkles here and there. It's very easy to just like go back into Zbrush, rebake the character, and do whatever you were missing. So again, just a couple of wrinkles here and there, just to finish up this nice little high poly, and there we go. So we can do a quick BPR here. Of course, the shadows are not great, but yeah, this is our character, guys. I hope you liked the video so far. Make sure to leave a like, share, subscribe. If you want, you can check our courses on the links down there on the description. And we're almost ready to go into our Christmas special week. So also stay tuned for that one. Thank you very much, guys. This is Abraham signing out. Bye-bye.